Under the tired hum of a single flickering fluorescent light, Tom Jensen slouched in the back row of the county hall, flipping through the auction catalog like he was skimming a thrift store novel. It was mostly junk, busted trailers, tax delinquent plots no bigger than a bathroom, and a couple of foreclosure houses so far gone you'd have to tear them down just to call them ruins. The auctioneer's voice was quick and dry, like gravel sliding down a tin chute. Lot number 42, abandoned property. Parcel includes remaining structures, no reserve. Opening bid, $70. Tom snorted. $70 wouldn't buy a dinner for two in town, let alone a chunk of land, but no one else in the room even twitched. The regulars, the farmers in sun-bleached caps, the antique dealers with their notepads, glanced at their phones or muttered to each other. On impulse, Tom raised his hand. He wasn't really bidding, he was just seeing if the auctioneer would notice. 70, I have 70. The man's words cracked through the room, bouncing off the wood-paneled walls. Do I hear 80? 80, anyone? Going once. Still no movement from the crowd. A man in a denim jacket smirked at Tom like he'd just stepped on a rake. Going twice. Tom felt a prickle of awkwardness. Surely someone would outbid him. Sold. The gavel came down with a sharp smack. $70 to Mr. Jensen, Tom muttered. A couple of heads shook, half in disbelief, half in amusement. Someone whispered, "Hope you like rattlesnakes," and another voice chuckled, "That's Hollow Bend, been empty 30 years. Tom forced a grin, but his stomach tightened. He wasn't sure if he'd just bought a piece of history or a very expensive pile of firewood. The road to Hollow Bend was little more than a scar through the desert, the kind of path you wouldn't notice unless you were already lost. Tom's old truck rattled and groaned with every rut, the radio long since fading into static. For the last 20 minutes, there had been nothing but sand, low scrub, and the occasional cactus leaning like a drunk against the wind. When the first building appeared in the heat shimmer, Tom almost thought it was a mirage. Then more shapes took form, faded facades, splintered awnings, and sun-bleached signs whose paint had surrendered decades ago. The main street was eerily straight, framed by wooden storefronts that leaned forward as if craning to see who dared visit. He parked near what might have been a general store once, its windows covered in grime thick enough to be curtains. The air was still, heavy with the smell of old wood baked in the sun. As he stepped out, his boots stirred little spirals of dust. That was when he heard it, faint but unmistakable. The clink of dishes. He froze, scanning the row of empty buildings. Then came something stranger still. Laughter, quick and bright, the kind that didn't belong in a place like this. A figure emerged from the yawning mouth of the old saloon. She was slender, her dress faded but neatly mended, a broom in her hand like a spear. Her hair was streaked with silver and tied back, though loose strands danced in the breeze. She didn't look frightened, more like someone sizing up a stray dog. From behind her skirts, 3 small faces peeked out, eyes wide and unblinking. The tallest clutched a wooden spoon like a weapon. The smallest sucked their thumb, gaze fixed on Tom as if he'd stepped straight out of a storybook. Tom lifted a hand in what he hoped was a friendly gesture. Hi, I think I just bought this place." The woman didn't move. The broom stayed planted like a staff. Behind her, the children whispered to one another, but their eyes never left him. The silence stretched, filled only by the distant groan of the wind. Through the empty town, the woman finally lowered the broom and gave a small, cautious nod. "Sarah Whitlock," she said, her voice steady but soft, like dry leaves brushing across old floorboards. She motioned toward the doorway. "You want to come in? It's the saloon, though it hasn't seen a drink in a long time." Inside, the air was thick with dust and memories. Rays of afternoon light filtered through cracked windows, casting long shadows over chipped wooden tables and a bar still lined with empty bottles coated in years of grime. Despite the decay, a small wood stove glowed weakly in the corner, and a ragged rug covered part of the creaky floorboards. Sarah moved with practiced ease, pouring coffee from a battered pot into chipped mugs. The rich scent was a sharp contrast to the dryness outside. The 3 children settled around a rickety table, their faces a mix of curiosity and wariness. "My husband died 10 years ago," Sarah began, her eyes fixed on the steaming cups. "The mine shut down long before that. Most folks packed up and left, ghosts chasing ghosts. But I stayed, couldn't bring myself to leave." She hesitated, then added quietly, "The children are all I have." Tom nodded slowly, feeling a strange mixture of admiration and sorrow. "How do you manage? Supplies, food, everything?" Sarah smiled faintly, a tired but genuine expression. "I grow what I can. Canned goods and flour come from a trader who passes through once a month if the road is clear. Water's a struggle, but the old well still has some life. It's not much, but it's enough. The children played quietly, making a train of wooden blocks, their laughter light but guarded. Sarah looked at them, then back at Tom. So, you own this place now. What do you plan to do with it? Tom shrugged, still taking in the weight of the unexpected responsibility. I don't know yet, but it feels like this town isn't really gone. Not if you and the kids are here. Sarah met his gaze, a flicker of hope shining through years of dust and silence. Maybe you're right. Tom watched the children as they played, their laughter weaving through the quiet space like a fragile melody. The youngest, a little girl with tangled hair and dirt-smudged cheeks, clutched a wooden block and giggled as her older brother pretended it was a train chugging along an invisible track. The sight caught Tom off guard, a spark of life in the middle of a place he'd thought was dead. He looked around the saloon, the cracked walls and dusty windows now feeling less like ruins and more like a home struggling to hold itself together. Outside, the wind sighed through the empty streets, tugging at the loose boards and rattling old signs, but inside here, warmth lingered. Turning back to Sarah, Tom offered a tentative smile. I guess this changes things, doesn't it? I came here thinking I'd just bought an empty piece of land. But it looks like I bought a community. Or at least, a family. Sarah studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. It's not much, she said, voice steady but touched with gratitude, but it's what we have. And maybe now, with you here, it can be something more. Tom felt the weight of the responsibility settle over him, not as a burden, but as a promise. How about this, he said, his eyes meeting hers with a spark of determination, we figure it out together. You, me, and the kids. Maybe Hollow Bend isn't a ghost town after all. Maybe it's just waiting for a new story. Sarah's lips curved into a small, hopeful smile. The children looked up, their eyes bright and trusting, and for the first time since he arrived, Tom felt something like belonging settle in his chest. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long golden rays over the weathered buildings. The wind still whispered through the empty streets, but inside that old saloon, something new was beginning. Life, stubborn and bright, refusing to fade away.